What up, everybody? Sven Diesel here. We're going to be tying the Sven killer D-rib bug from Utah. Resembles a lot of the Utah killer bug, just with a variation of using D-rib. We're going to start with a stealth C14. Got it in the vise. Notice I'm got the point all the way into the jaws at a slight down angle, and I'll show you why. We're going to weight it with .015 lead, and this will also help form the body of the sow bug or scud imitation of what you're trying to imitate, but for this we're trying to imitate a sow bug. And so I do about 10 wraps, position it on the top of the hook. I'm using Simplify Nano Silk. I'll start my thread and put a couple wraps and then use my thread so I don't burn through all those lead wraps. I'll go ahead and take the tag end of the lead off and just do a few loose wraps going over to 45. That way that I'm getting a good thread brace over it, and take my thread back to the back of the hook and give it a little bit of a, securing that lead, snipping out the tag end. I don't need to get a perfect taper, but here's where we use the vinyl rib. This is pink so you can see it. Comes in a whole bunch of different colors. I'm just going to wrap this over the top of the shank back down to where I ended my thread, and this is going to help kind of form the tapering over the lead and giving us a nice shape. And it doesn't need to be perfect because we're going to add another material that's going to help with that. And I'm just going to put a little bit of Z cement on there just to secure it all in place. And while it's still wet, I'm going to take my Shepard's spindrift in the oyster, which is a very popular color for us here, and go ahead and start it with starting it a little bit back so that those fibers don't come off the end and bug up my eye. And while it's still wet, you can see that it's absorbing some of that Z cement, basically bonding everything together. And now I'm just going to really kind of crank down and make sure that this body has a nice uniform to it, that there's not any places where the spindrift's going to cause problems. And I'll tie it off so that my thread doesn't slip off, and making sure kind of get all those little tag ends in at this point so later it's not a problem. And with the Utah killer bug, normally I twist it, but here I'm going to be actually untwisting it as I go, trying to keep these as flat and as tight as possible. And I'm kind of twisting it as I come around each turn, making sure that it's almost undone. You can see the two separate fibers by themselves. And I'm going to end it about a wrap before the eye of the hook and tie this off so that it doesn't get in my way for creating a nice head later. But I'll do wraps behind and in front, making sure that that vinyl doesn't get tangled up in my tying this off. Snip it out, and then we'll kind of clean up that head a little bit now. Like I said, we're prepping for the end, so pull those fibers back and give it a nice secure wraps, making sure that this spindrift wool yarn is not going to walk on me. And we'll tie it off again, and that looks like a Utah killer bug. But what we're going to do is I'm going to take a stainless steel brush, and I'm going to brush it now. And I fish these just like this, but this is kind of a little bit of a different variant. And I'm going to take the D-rib and I'm going to do it once, and then it's going to kind of fall down beneath itself. And then basically that's how I build up my base. And then I'll go back over my first wrap once, and then loosely I'm coming back on to the yarn, and I'm going to give it about 3 wraps onto the yarn. And now I'm going to take the brush and rough it up. Go back and forward, and then kind of make sure those fibers are coming back off the end. And then what you do is we're going to wrap over those fibers, so those fibers are actually sticking out of the D-rib. And I usually do about 2 wraps, and then we're going to brush it again, and then I'll make sure those fibers are back, do another 1 or 2 wraps, and we'll continue this process all the way up. Making sure that every time we brush it, we're basically bringing fibers out of that D-rib and making it look even buggier. But in I don't know if the D-rib's strengthening the sow bug here, or if it's just for appearance, making, almost giving it more of a segmented body, or maybe a little bit of clear weirdness that might attract the fish or detract the fish. Time will tell. But continuing with doing 1 or 2 wraps. Now, if you have a problem where you all of a sudden notice a wrap is kind of going a little skewy, and you got too much of a gap, you can always back it off and readjust by bringing it up and over. It's super easy to work with. The D-rib's very durable. You don't have to worry about it breaking off like a biot or anything. But I'll just get up, so I've got about 1 or 2 wraps before the eye of the hook, and I'll tie off this D-rib, making sure to go behind it and in front of it. So doing a secure wrap in front, and then we'll go behind it. And now I'm going to go up and over it, which has also helped building the head a little bit with a little bit of bulk for the D-rib being doubled over. I'll go ahead and snip this out. Be careful not to snip your thread. Oh, I kind of buggered the bobbin there. But let's whip finish this. And I really like this loon whip finisher because it really spins around real nice, rotating it on itself. So I'm able to give 6, 7, 8 turn whip finishes. But right now with the nano silk, you got to do a little bit more to build that head. That looks pretty good. And we'll go ahead and snip that out. And I'm going to put a little bit of loon on there. This is a flow. And I'm going to put a drop and then hurry and cure it. I don't want it absorbing into the fibers too much. I want that thread secure. And there you go. That is the D-rib killer bug. And looks buggy and looks durable, and it will fish. And it's weighted so it will get down. And there you go.